You don't just owe me a thank you. You owe me a life. And you aren't rich enough to pay that debt.
The morning sun had barely risen when Elena Ward lit the burner of her street cart. The air was thin, the city gray, the kind of morning where hope felt too expensive to afford. Her cart wobbled on uneven pavement, steam curling from a dented kettle. Beside her stood two small silhouettes, Noah and Nia, 10-year-old twins with eyes far too old for their years. They worked quietly, handing out breakfast to passing workers, one smile at a time, one paper cup at a time. Life hadn't given them much, but Elena had taught them how to share it anyway. In the distance, a line of black cars sped down the boulevard. Inside one of them sat Victor Hayes, billionaire, clean-cut, impatient, a man who measured compassion in profit margins. He would never notice the woman selling bread by the corner. Not today. But fate had its own sense of humor, because before the day was over, one of those twins, the boy with the scraped knees and the stubborn eyes, would save his life. And everything Victor thought he knew about worth would burn to the ground. Where are you listening from tonight? And do you still believe one act of kindness can change the world's richest man? The city woke up slowly, street by street, sound by sound. Steam hissed from manholes, buses coughed down the avenue, and vendors like Elena Ward began their daily ballet of survival. She wasn't born for this life. Once, she'd worn scrubs instead of aprons. Once, her days began in white hospital halls filled with antiseptic and purpose. But that was before the fire, before the oxygen tanks exploded, before the lawsuit that took her license and the husband who never made it home. Now, she served coffee to men in suits who never met her eyes. Elena was 38, her skin dark and freckled with sunlight, her hands rough but steady. The twins, Noah and Nia, were her rhythm. She called them her two halves of one heartbeat. Noah had his father's energy, always fixing, tinkering, daring the world to break him. He could make a toy car from bottle caps, a kite from trash bags, a smile from almost anything. Nia was quieter. She'd watch the world with a poet's gaze, painting in her notebook with the stub of a blue pencil, as if color itself obeyed her. At night, the three of them shared one small room behind a laundromat. The hum of machines became their lullaby. When rain leaked through the ceiling, Noah caught it in jars and called them sky trophies. Elena laughed, pretending it was normal. But every evening, before lights out, she told them the same story, about a nurse who once saved a child trapped in a burning building. That boy grew up to be a great man, she'd whisper, because kindness doesn't die. It just waits for someone to remember it. She didn't know the irony in her words. Across town, in a glass tower scraping the sky, Victor Hayes signed papers that erased hundreds of jobs in one stroke. His assistant spoke in numbers. He replied in percentages. The man was precision in a suit. His heart, another department long outsourced. "Sir," his assistant murmured, "the press is asking about the hospital layoffs. They want to comment." Victor didn't look up. "Tell them compassion doesn't pay rent." He closed the folder, checked his watch, and left for his meeting, the one that would decide another $1 million merger. Down the same road, Elena pushed her cart through puddles, humming under her breath to drown out the noise of engines. "Mom," Nia said, holding her hand, "do you think rich people ever get tired of being rich?" Elena smiled faintly. "If they do, baby, they never tell us." Noah kicked a pebble into the street. "If I ever get rich, I'll buy everyone breakfast." She ruffled his hair. "Then you'll be the first billionaire with an empty wallet." They laughed, that soft, private kind of laughter that keeps families alive. Behind them, a storm gathered. The sky dimmed. Tires screeched somewhere down the boulevard. A black car swerved hard, hitting the curb. The sound tore through the air, metal twisting, glass shattering. People screamed and scattered. Without thinking, Noah ran. "Elena!" someone shouted. "Get your boy?" But she was already running after him, heart in her throat, feet sliding on wet asphalt. The car's hood steamed, smoke curling up like breath. Through the cracked windshield, a man slumped against the wheel, blood on his forehead, eyes closed. Noah climbed the hood, pulling at the door handle. "Mom, he's not moving!" "Stay back," she cried, but he didn't. He wedged his small hands under the latch and pulled until the door creaked open. Flames licked the edge of the engine. Then, one final tug, a pop, and the man fell into his arms. It was Victor Hayes. The billionaire and the boy with nothing met in the middle of chaos. One saving a life, the other remembering what one felt like. And in that moment, the world paused, as if mercy had taken a breath. The hospital smelled like rain and antiseptic, a sterile kind of mercy. Machines beeped softly in rhythm, somewhere between life and death. Elena sat in the waiting room, still in her work clothes, arms wrapped around Noah. He shivered beneath the thin blanket the nurse had given him. His hair was damp, his lips pale. "Mom," he whispered, "did I do something wrong?" She brushed the wet strands from his forehead. "No, baby. You did something right. You did something brave." The door opened. A doctor stepped out, clipboard in hand. "The man your son saved is stable," he said. "He's asking to meet the family of the boy who pulled him from the wreck." Elena froze. "He's awake?" "Yes. And he's not just anyone." The doctor hesitated. "He's Victor Hayes." The name hit like a spark in dry air. For a second, Elena forgot how to breathe. She'd heard that name 1,000 times. On TV, in newspaper headlines, printed on the very paycheck that once kept their lights on. Hayes Medical Group. The man whose company had closed the hospital where she worked, claiming budget reallocation. That closure had taken her job, her pension, her husband's treatment. Marcus had died waiting for surgery they couldn't afford. Now, his widow sat outside the room of the man who'd signed the order. Inside, Victor Hayes stirred in a private suite, the kind with polished floors and a view that pretended poverty didn't exist. His head throbbed, his arm was bandaged, but the thing that hurt most was memory. The last thing he remembered before the crash was the rain, then a blur of motion, a small boy's voice shouting, "I've got you, mister!" When the nurse told him the boy had stayed until the ambulance came, he couldn't speak. He looked down at his hand, tiny scratches where the boy's nails had dug in, refusing to let go. A knock came. The door opened. Elena stepped inside. Her uniform was still damp, her face pale, but her eyes were steady. "Mr. Hayes," she said softly. He studied her for a long moment. "You're the boy's mother?" "Yes." "You raised a hero." Her jaw tightened. "I raised a child who doesn't know how cruel the world can be." He blinked. "Excuse me." "Don't thank me for what he did," she said. "He didn't know who you were." Something shifted in his expression. Confusion, then curiosity, then unease. "Do I know you?" "Not anymore," she said quietly. Her gaze flicked to the wall, to the plaque bearing his company's name. "I used to work in one of your hospitals, before you decided numbers mattered more than people." Recognition flickered across his face, faint but undeniable. "You were a nurse?" She nodded. "I was the one who held the line when your administrators cut supplies. I was the one who told them the ICU wasn't a balance sheet." He swallowed. "You lost your job because of that." "No, Mr. Hayes. I lost my husband. The job was just the prelude." Her voice didn't break. It was too tired to. He turned his face away. staring at the skyline through the rain-streaked window. For the first time in years, the view looked wrong. Finally, he whispered, "If I could change it." She cut him off. "You can't, but you can stop pretending people like me don't exist." Silence fell, heavy, raw. Then Noah peeked in through the doorway, clutching a juice box. "Mom, is this the man?" She nodded gently. Victor stared at the boy, small, bright-eyed, unafraid. "You saved my life," Noah shrugged. "You looked like you needed it." Victor's mouth twitched, almost a smile, but not quite. Elena placed a hand on Noah's shoulder. "Come on, sweetheart. We'll let the man rest." As they left, Victor's voice followed them, low and uncertain. "Wait, what's your name?" Elena turned, meeting his gaze. Elena Ward. The name cracked something open in him, because suddenly he remembered. 25 years earlier, a nurse had carried a burned child through the doors of a charity clinic, his skin blistered, his lungs full of smoke. She'd stayed with him all night, singing softly to keep him awake. He never saw her face clearly, but he remembered her voice. He remembered her saying, "You'll grow up to build something good, won't you?" And now she stood before him, older, worn, still unbreakable. "Elena," he whispered, You were her." She looked at him for a long moment, then said simply, "Once." And then she left. That night, Victor couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the boy's hands dragging him from the wreckage, the same hands that now clung to hope in a world he had helped make cruel. For the first time, he felt something that no medicine could numb: shame. And in the small apartment across town, Elena tucked Noah and Naya into bed, whispering a prayer she hadn't said in years. "God, let kindness reach him before anger does." The next day, the city moved on, as it always did. But Victor Hayes couldn't. He sat at his desk, surrounded by glass and gold, staring at the blank document on his screen. Every word he tried to type about quarterly reports dissolved into the memory of that boy's voice. "You looked like you needed it." For the first time in years, he felt poor. He called his assistant. "Find her." "Sir?" "The nurse, Elena Ward, and her children. I owe them something." Within hours, she stood in his office again, her worn uniform clean, her hands folded in quiet defiance. "I told you, Mr. Hayes, you don't owe me anything." He stood. "Then let me help your family. A new home, a proper education for your children." She shook her head. "You want to pay your way out of guilt." He flinched. "I want to make things right." "You can't write a check for right," she said, turning away. "You either live it, or you don't." But someone had heard the conversation, a journalist in the lobby, waiting for an interview. The next morning, the headlines blazed. "Billionaire offers charity to former employee. She refuses. Ingrate rejects life-changing gift." They twisted her refusal into arrogance, and the world believed it. At the market, strangers whispered. At the twins' school, parents pointed. "That's her," one woman sneered, "the one who humiliated Hayes." Noah clenched his fists. "Mom, say something. Tell them the truth." But Elena only said, "The truth doesn't need a microphone, baby. It just needs time." By the weekend, she'd lost half her customers. Her cart was vandalized with a single word sprayed across the side: ungrateful. That night, she sat alone by the window while her children slept. The rain tapped softly against the glass, each drop echoing like an accusation. She whispered, "Maybe I should have just taken the money." Her reflection in the window looked older than it should. Tired, defeated. Across the city, Victor watched the news replay her interview. Every word they twisted cut deeper than the crash ever had. His PR team insisted. Let it go, sir. You offered help. The public's on your side. He turned off the television. If they're on my side, then I'm still on the wrong one. The next morning, he arrived at her street before sunrise. Alone, no press, no cameras. The smell of bread and damp asphalt filled the air. Elena was pushing her cart uphill when he appeared beside her. You shouldn't be here, she said coldly. I'm not here to fix you, he said. I'm here to listen. She stopped walking, her hands tightening on the cart handle. You really want to know what people like me need? Yes. We need men like you to stop confusing guilt with generosity. He looked down. I don't know how to do that. Then start by not pretending you do. They stood there in silence, the city waking around them. For a brief second, something fragile passed between them. Not forgiveness, but the possibility of it. Then a car horn blared. Reporters swarmed from nowhere, flashing cameras, shouting questions. Mr. Hayes, are you two reconciling? Mrs. Ward, are you still refusing his help? Victor froze. He hadn't called them, but someone had leaked his visit. It looked like a performance, not repentance. Elena's eyes burned with fury. You brought them? No, he said, stepping closer. I swear. Do you ever stop lying? She grabbed her cart, pushed through the crowd, and disappeared down the street. Victor stood helpless as microphones chased him, questions slicing like rain. Mr. Hayes, are you in love with the nurse? For the first time in his public life, he had no answer. That evening, Elena packed up early. Noah helped in silence, while Naya watched the last customers drift away. Mom, Naya said softly, why do people hate what they don't understand? Elena forced a smile. Because it's easier than learning. When the children slept, she walked outside into the rain, the same rain that had connected their lives. She looked up at the sky, whispered, Marcus, I'm trying. I really am. And somewhere across the city, Victor stood at his penthouse window, whispering to no one. So am I. Two worlds, one broken by loss, one by wealth, now shared the same ache. Neither of them knew that the next sunrise would bring a reckoning neither pride nor money could stop. The eviction notice came on a Tuesday. No warning, no apology, just paper and glue on a peeling door. Elena stood there, the letter trembling in her hand, the twins behind her clutching their school bags. We have 3 days, she whispered. Noah frowned. 3 days for what, Mama? She forced a smile. To find a better view. But there was no better. The shelter was full. The savings were gone. The cart, their only income, had been towed that morning for permit violations. That night, she sat on the floor beside her children's bedrolls. Naya's forehead burned with fever. Noah slept in her lap, murmuring about fixing the world one day. She brushed a tear from his cheek before it could fall. You already are, she whispered. When the lights flickered out, she didn't pray for help anymore. She just asked for strength not to break in front of them. Across the river, Victor Hayes walked through a mansion that no longer felt like home. He moved past chandeliers, past the art his assistants picked for walls he never really saw. Each hallway echoed with emptiness, an empire carved out of silence. He passed a photo, a charity gala from years ago. His smile cold, practiced. He hated that man. The headlines about Elena still flashed online. Ungrateful mother rejects redemption. But now the words tasted bitter. He closed his laptop, walked to the balcony, and stared at the city glowing beneath him. Every light down there was a story. He'd spent his life counting profits, not people. He called his driver. Find me the woman from the market. Mrs. Ward? No, Victor said quietly. Find me Elena. By morning, Elena was packing what little they had into garbage bags. The twins were quiet, exhausted. "Where are we going, Mama?" She forced her voice steady. "Where the sky doesn't leak." A knock interrupted her. She opened the door, expecting the landlord, and froze. Victor stood there in the rain, holding 2 grocery bags and an envelope. No cameras, no entourage, just him. "I heard about the eviction," he said softly. She turned away. "So did the whole city. I can fix this." She spun around, eyes blazing. "You think everything can be bought?" "No," he said. "But it can be rebuilt." He set the envelope on the table. "No names, no headlines. Just a place for your kids to sleep tonight." Elena looked at the paper. A lease in her name, fully paid for a year. "I can't take this." "You already did," he said, "when your son pulled me from that car." She stared at him, breath trembling. "Why are you doing this?" He hesitated. "Because if I walk away now, I'll never be worth the life he saved." For a long time, neither spoke. The rain outside softened into a hush. Finally, she said, "If I say yes, it's not charity." "No," he said, "it's penance." She took the key from the envelope, her hand brushing his. For a second, the world felt strangely still. 2 lives circling back to the point where loss had first divided them. "Thank you," she whispered, almost against her will. Victor exhaled, the words sounding like forgiveness. "Don't thank me. Just don't give up." As he left, she stood in the doorway, the twins watching. Noah asked, "Who was that?" Elena smiled faintly. "Someone learning how to be human again." That night, for the first time in months, they slept under a roof that didn't leak. Elena lay awake, the key still in her hand, thinking of the man who'd once ruined her life, and the boy who'd unknowingly saved his soul. And for the first time since the fire, she allowed herself a whisper of belief, not in miracles, but in mercy. The first rays of dawn slipped through the blinds, painting thin stripes of gold across the floor of their new apartment. Elena Ward sat at the small kitchen table, hands wrapped around a chipped mug of coffee. It was quiet, too quiet for a woman who'd grown used to sirens and chaos. The twins were still asleep, tangled together under one blanket. For the first time in months, they looked like children again, not survivors. Elena stared at the lease papers spread before her. The name at the bottom still made her uneasy. Victor Hayes. No signature, no note. Just a silent deed of mercy. She whispered, "What are you trying to prove, Mr. Hayes?" Across the city, Victor was done trying to prove anything. He sat in his boardroom surrounded by men who worshipped the numbers he used to breathe for. "Sir," one of them said, "the PR fallout from this charity thing has been neutralized. The woman's name doesn't sell anymore. We can move forward with the new hospital buyout." Victor looked at the spreadsheet. Line after line of profits built from layoffs, closures, forgotten faces. He saw Elena's eyes in the blank spaces. "No," he said finally. The room went silent. "We're not buying another hospital. We're reopening the one we shut down." "Sir, that facility's condemned." "So is my conscience," Victor cut in, standing. "Fix it." He left the board stunned. For once, the richest man in the room didn't sound like one. That night, he drove to the old St. Andrew's Hospital, the one that burned years ago, the one where Marcus Ward had died. The gates were rusted, the sign broken. But through the ruin, he saw what was left of a plaque near the entrance. It read, "In honor of Nurse Elena Ward, for courage under fire." He froze. The memory came back all at once. Smoke, screaming, a child's voice, and a woman carrying him through the flames. Her. He'd been 9 years old. His parents were gone. The fire had taken them. A nurse had found him in the chaos and held him until the medics came. "You'll live," she'd whispered. That's your second chance. Don't waste it. He hadn't known her name then. He did now. Elena hadn't just saved him once. She'd saved him twice. When he knocked on her door later that week, she didn't expect him. Her first instinct was to brace for bad news. "Mr. Hayes," she said, folding her arms, "you should know. We don't take handouts anymore." He smiled faintly. "Then I'm not here to give one." He stepped inside slowly, removing his hat like a man entering a chapel. "There's something you need to hear." She eyed him warily. "I've heard enough from you to last a lifetime." "Not from me," he said softly. "From your past." He told her everything. The fire, the nurse, the voice that had stayed with him through every selfish decision. When he finished, the room was silent except for the faint hum of the fridge. Elena's hand trembled. "You were that boy?" He nodded. "You told me not to waste my second chance. I did anyway." She turned away, her breath catching. "All this time, and you didn't remember?" "I remembered her," he said. "I just forgot how to be her kind of man." She faced him again, eyes shining but steady. "Then don't say sorry. Show it." He nodded. "I already started. St. Andrews, I'm rebuilding it, as a free community clinic, for families like yours." Her jaw slackened. "You're serious?" "As serious as the boy you saved," he said. Her lips parted. A sound caught somewhere between disbelief and relief. Then she laughed. Quiet at first, then deeper, as if something long locked inside her had cracked open. "I don't know if I believe in redemption," she whispered. "But maybe I can believe in this." He smiled. "Then let me earn the rest." Over the next few months, the city began to change. Construction crews worked where the ruins of St. Andrews once stood. Signs appeared. "Coming soon, the ward clinic." Elena returned to her old calling, helping train new nurses. Victor stopped giving speeches about efficiency. Instead, he walked the halls, listening. No cameras. No headlines. Just people. One afternoon, as they stood side by side watching the first patients arrive, Victor said quietly, "Do you ever think about fate?" Elena glanced at him. "No. I think about choices. Fate gets too much credit," he chuckled. "Then maybe this isn't fate." "No," she said softly. "It's faith." He nodded, his voice almost a whisper. "Faith that we can start over." And somewhere deep inside the hum of the hospital, the sound of monitors and soft footsteps blended with something unseen. The pulse of a city remembering how to feel again. The day the clinic opened, the city woke softer. The air smelled of rain and paint, the kind of scent that clings to new beginnings. The sign above the doors shimmered in the morning light. The ward clinic, built from second chances. Crowds gathered in the courtyard, faces from every corner of East Side. Mothers with children, old men leaning on canes, nurses in white, all waiting for the doors to open. Elena Ward stood by the entrance, wearing her old nurse's badge, freshly polished. The twins, Noah and Nia, stood beside her, holding hands. Their uniforms were new, their smiles shy but proud. Victor Hayes approached quietly. No entourage, no cameras this time. Just a man carrying a small box of carnations. He handed them to her. "You once said kindness doesn't die," he murmured. "I'm still learning how to keep it alive." She took the flowers, eyes glistening. "Then start here. Inside." The ribbon fell away with one clean cut. Applause rose like thunder, but Victor didn't look at the cameras. He looked at her. Inside the clinic. The walls were white and simple. The first room bore a plaque, "In memory of Marcus Ward, who taught us that service is strength." Elena traced the words with her fingertips. "He'd like this," she whispered. Victor nodded. "He'd like that you're still fighting. She turned to him. You're fighting too. Just differently now. He smiled, faintly. Maybe we're on the same side for once. Weeks passed, and the clinic began to hum with life. Footsteps, laughter, the rustle of papers, the hush of gratitude. Nia painted murals for the children's ward. Bright colors, wide skies. Noah fixed the broken fans, rewired the lights, built small inventions that made the staff laugh. He's got an engineer's brain, one doctor said. Elena smiled. He's got his father's hands. And Victor, the man who once ruled from glass towers, spent his days sweeping the halls after hours. No one's too rich to clean, he'd say, when people asked why. He'd look through the window at dusk, watching the twins chase each other in the garden. In those moments, his empire didn't feel lost. It finally felt earned. Months later, on a quiet evening, Elena walked through the garden behind the clinic. The sun was dipping low, the world turning golden. She found Victor there, kneeling by a row of new flowers. You don't strike me as the gardening type, she teased. He smiled. I wasn't the living type either. She laughed softly, but her eyes warmed. You've changed, Victor. He looked up at her, the light catching in his gray eyes. You taught me how. She shook her head. No. You just remembered. They stood in silence, the air thick with unspoken peace. The twins' laughter drifted from the courtyard, a sound that felt like forgiveness wearing joy's disguise. Victor glanced at them. They saved more than my life. Elena nodded. They saved the part of you that could still feel. He smiled. Then maybe they're your third miracle. She raised a brow. Third? He met her gaze. You saved me twice already. They both laughed, not the bitter kind, but the kind that rebuilds what life once shattered. Later that night, the clinic quieted. Only the hum of machines and the low murmur of prayers remained. Elena turned off the last light and stepped outside. The city glowed beneath a silver moon, alive, awake, forgiven. Victor was locking the gate. She paused beside him. Do you ever think we were meant to meet again? She asked. He looked at her, thoughtful. No. I think we were meant to finish what we started. She smiled. Then let's keep going. He nodded. Until there's nothing left to fix. They stood under the same streetlight that once watched a broken car burn. The same light that now shone on something reborn. Above them, the sky stretched wide. Not perfect, but clean. And for the first time, neither of them felt poor. Some debts can't be paid in money, only in mercy. Some wounds don't close. They bloom into something new. Because the world doesn't need more heroes. It needs more hearts that refuse to look away. Elena Ward raised her children on faith. Victor Hayes rebuilt his empire on grace. And between them, a city remembered what it means to be alive. Sometimes redemption doesn't roar. It just breathes.